Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. This is Matt Rascher, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the methodology portion of my research proposal. Some say the methodology portion is the most important part of a research proposal. Others say it's the secret fifth chapter that includes all the Batman fan fiction. Wherever you land on that, before we can really get to any of it, I would like to take a few moments to introduce myself. So I'm going to go ahead and get the presentation going. So as you can see here, my methodology video presentation, ITI 664, December 1st. That's when I worked on this for Dr. Nilsa J. Thorsons. So again, just taking a moment to introduce myself. You may remember me from such great classes as ITI 660 and ITI 662. My professional life started around 16 when I got my first job at an amusement park, and I have since held several different jobs over the years, including my current position as a recruiter at a large tech company here in the Bay Area. Though I'm not currently in the classroom, I do teach an improv comedy class once a week, and it has been a great opportunity for me to really start getting my feet wet in the world of teaching. Thinking back, I've wanted to be a teacher since I was a teenager, but the time was never quite right until a little over a year or so ago when I had a moment of, what am I doing with my life? I'm sure we've all been there from time to time, and I needed to make a change. At this point, as well, I was coming in on 30, and I felt like I was mentally and emotionally mature enough to kind of take the plunge. And 13 classes later, I am done with my credential program and just have one left to go for the master's. So speaking of which, that's why we're here today. To talk about the research proposal that we're writing for this class. So my topic for the proposal is the effective use of nonverbal communication during EL instruction as a bridge to social, emotional health and development. Really just rolls off the tongue. Essentially what I'm talking about is using nonverbal communication to help EL students feel more comfortable in the classroom. Now, the more comfortable an EL student, or any student for that matter, is, the better they'll be able to perform, as they're not as preoccupied with other things, being hungry, not understanding what's going on, different things like that, kind of drawing their attention away from the classroom and what they should be focusing on. So why am I doing this, right? So I want to investigate this topic because nonverbal communication is something I find incredibly interesting. And as someone who performs improv and acts on stage, I have a deep appreciation for the nuances of our behavior, our physical behavior, and the effect that they can have, even when we don't realize it. So, nonverbal communication as well, it's everything from the smallest furrowed brow to folded arms to how you carry yourself in the classroom, and even the tone and inflection of your voice. All of these nonverbal gestures make a difference, and I want to see how much of a difference and what that difference ultimately means in relation to EL students and their ability to develop and prosper. Now, of course, when considering how I was going to find this out, I need to put together some research questions. Again, these research questions focus on the topic of the research proposal itself, with the main question being, how does nonverbal communication during EL instruction act as a bridge to social emotional health and development? Furthermore, some sub-questions, kind of questioning my assumption of how comfortable the student feeling in a classroom affects their performance, by asking, can a more comfortable and safe learning environment for EL students lead to increased oral and written English development? In addition to that, I also asked, how will we measure engagement levels among participating students? So just getting back to that first sub question. So That's really taking a look at the assumption of, the more comfortable a student is in class, will that lead to increased development in their English language processing? So with the oral and written English language development. So that's one of the things that I'm really, really interested in. And once I get to the methodology portion of the presentation, I'll go into a little bit more depth about how I'm going to try and kind of find that out. So these and the rest of the questions that I have kind of align with the data collection approach. And the data collection, of course, is incredibly important, as if we don't have the data and we don't collect it and do it in a meaningful way, this is all kind of for naught. So the data collection, the way I want to do this study, so there's going to be a few ways, right? So I'm going to be doing this by observations and interviews of the students in the study. These observations and interviews will give me the information needed to really answer the biggest question of how nonverbal communication works in the classroom. In addition to these methods, I'm also planning on reviewing work done in the classes to see a couple of different things. So to see the difference between the beginning of the class and the end of it, and how it compares to the other class in the study. So at this point, I think it would be helpful and useful to take a look at what I'm actually planning to do for the study, so that previous portion makes a little bit more sense. So the methodology, right? In my study, the plan is to have 2 9th grade classes, mostly containing EL students at the emerging level. So of course, the emerging level is being those students who are learning to use English for immediate needs, as well as beginning to understand and use academic vocabulary and other forms of academic language taught by the same, and other forms of academic language. Now, in these classes, we're going to have them taught by the same teacher with the same lesson plan for both, with one class using really demonstrative nonverbal communication used in a fashion to attempt to create a welcoming and emotionally healthy environment. Whereas in the other class, there would be, essentially as little nonverbal communication as possible. So this is going to be done over the course of 2 months. And once the first month is completed, so in the first month, we'll have one class with the strong nonverbal, one class with the weak nonverbal. So at the end of that month, the classes will be switched, with the one previously receiving that strong nonverbal communication now receiving little to none, and the one formerly receiving little now getting more strong nonverbal communication. So the purpose behind switching after a month is twofold. First, to see if the potential benefits gained from the strong nonverbal communication will carry over into an environment without it, and to also see if those who didn't have those benefits, the potential benefits of nonverbal communication, will continue to struggle in spite of now receiving it. So again, observation, interviews, review of the classwork to help to answer the questions I brought up. And to do all of this, I obviously needed to do a lot of research, needed to do a lot of studying. And so the way I came about all of that, so are various resources. So I used a couple of different ways. Essentially, I started just looking around online a whole bunch. My first web bibliography way back in 660 had far too many internet-only resources on it, such as websites, things like that, not scholarly articles. And so once we got to the literary review section, I had to do some heavy research in online databases to make sure that I had enough, peer-reviewed scholarly articles to really back up what I was talking about. Once I did get there, one of those databases was ProQuest, another being Google Scholar, our own library's database as well. And my experience with the library was good. It helped provide me with a lot of sources, especially once I kind of exhausted those found on ProQuest. And really, once I was able to kind of get down to how to filter and navigate it, I felt pretty comfortable with using it. So speaking more specifically about my resources, without going into too much detail about every single one, as we all have dozens at this point, I really broke them down into two kind of categories. So those that were mostly about, they were all about nonverbal communication, but in two different forms. So one being nonverbal communication in a general sense, and the second being nonverbal communication in relation to kind of culture, or more specifically EL students. This helped to kind of shape my proposal and help me really realize that so much of nonverbal communication plays into the idea of it being able to positively affect EL students. In addition to all of my research and everything, my critical friend, Ricky Flores, helped a lot in our communication, especially helping to kind of guide me through to my ultimate research question. There just was a lot of support and guidance kind of throughout the process. He's really been a great critical friend to have, and I look forward to being able to use him as a resource and just as a friend as well. Even once the master's program is done. And so finally, if I could turn back time, I think the biggest piece of advice I would give myself really from the outset of this would be to immediately get scholarly resources instead of the websites that I was originally using in my bibliography. Saying that, the info that I found on those sites was pretty helpful in forming my ideas and giving me some of the building blocks that I would later find in peer-reviewed articles. Aside from that, with my current work and life schedule, I'd say I'm pretty happy with how I've curated my time. I've still been able to work my 9-to-5 job, pursue my hobbies, spend the occasional Sunday watching football, and even see my wife every now and then. Now, the last portion of this presentation is about my future. So post-master's degree, right? Life post-completion of master's degree. So on November 27th, which was just over a week ago, I went to my student teaching orientation, and I'm currently waiting to find out where I will be doing my student teaching this spring. I'm incredibly excited about it and absolutely can't wait to find out where I'll be for the next 4 months. From there, I plan on applying to full-time high school English teaching positions for the 2019-2020 school year. And, hopefully, I live in the Bay Area. I know a few of you have an idea of kind of what traffic is like here. So hopefully I'll be able to land somewhere that has a good commute, and, a strong administration and good students and faculty and stuff like that. But, got to keep my priorities right. But that is more or less my methodology portion of my research proposal. I hope you have all found it as fun and informative, for you as it was for me. And again, thank you for taking the time. Take care and have a great day.